were chosen by Chaplain Hovis and some other guys here at Forgotten Men Ministry to tell you about our story, to tell you about our faith, how we got to this point, how we arrived here. It's a journey. It's a day-by-day situation. Right about the time I was 18, I made some choices. My father, he was in a motorcycle club, and so he got shot. My father ended up being shot, and he was kind of like the disciplinarian in the house. It's me, my mother, and my father. And so when he got shot, doing what he did, living his lifestyle, it pulled him out of the house as the disciplinarian, and my mother, because she was taking care of him at the hospital, she had to check on him. So I spent a lot of time figuring things out by myself, and I allowed the streets to influence me. And at that time, I began to sell drugs, use drugs, run with some people. And so those choices you make at 17, 18, they follow you for a lifetime. So some 10, 20 years later, around 1996, me and her weren't together yet. We had
Always
separated.
friends.
Always friends.
Yeah, yeah.
And so 1996, I committed my first felony. My addiction had increased. I was drinking, I was using cocaine. And so 1996, my first time being arrested, I got unarmed robbery. And they gave me boot camp, tether, probation. They stretched me out for 5 years. And the judge wanted to see if I was gonna walk that line. And he knew something I didn't know. He knew I couldn't do it. I wasn't gonna do it. So that was 1996. By 1999, I had committed another armed robbery, and I was on my way to prison for the first time. I went to prison for 5 years, 9 months.
We were still in contact with each other first time he went in.
Yeah.
As friends, writing back and forth, making sure. By that time, 18, I was long gone. I was living somewhere else, but we just always kept in touch.
Right.
Making sure, he was okay. You doing all right? Okay. Then years would pass by. Hey, how are you? You doing okay? We're just keeping in contact with each other.
All right. So 2004, I get out. It was around Thanksgiving, and thankfully her mother's phone number hadn't changed in 20 years. So I called her mother's house and I asked her, how's Thelma? I said, well, Thelma's at home. Thelma was there in Flint.
Yeah.
And so I go visit, and so constant, instant reunion, me and her. So we've been back together since 2004. Now, again, I'm fresh out of prison, 2004, we're dating, not married yet. I'm trying to get over this addiction I still have. I'm still trying to adjust. There's a new life. We get married, so now I have her, I have a son, and I'm living a double life. Something in me wants to do right by her and our son. But there's another part in me that hasn't dealt with these issues that I grew up with. I still have demons on me. I still have things that I haven't addressed. So her being the woman she was, when she found out about my addiction and my struggles, we went to see the therapist and the psychiatrist, and we did that together, couple therapy. But none of that worked. I'm not gonna say part of the problem, but what made it easy for me to continue to live in that life, at that time, she was an airline stewardess.
Yeah, so I was gone 3 and 4 days at a time.
Right.
Tried to go down to like 2 days at a time just to, make sure the household was okay. And then just one day, eventually, I just said, you're gonna have to want it. Whatever you decide to do, though, I'll be right there with you. Friend walking, the whole way through. But I can't want it more than you to be. So it was hard. I had to just step back and watch him make a decision.
It didn't mesh. It didn't work out for me. 2008, I got convicted again of my second armed robbery. And so that's when I ended up here, county jail. Before that, before I got into county jail, when the police arrested me that night, I led the police on a high-speed chase. I just knew I didn't want to go back to prison. And I ended up crashing my truck, and I got out, ran on foot. And so the police got me. They put me in the back of the police car, And I was depleted. I was so frustrated. I knew what my fate was at that point. And there's this light shining on me in the back of the police car. And I thought it was the officers with their flashlight telling me to look up. And I'm like, I don't want to look up. And something's telling me to look up. So I look up, and I'm behind a church. I'm in the back of a church, and there's this bright light shining on the back of a church, and I see the stained glass windows. And God told me it was time to stop running. He was like, you're done running. That's it. This is it for you. And so I come to the county jail. And they put you in the holding tank. They put you in the bottom of the jail. And I'm in the cell by myself. And there's this little orange pocket Bible that they give you in the county jail. And I can see it. I don't know how to pray. I don't know where to start reading this thing. And so I'm just sitting there. And Forgotten Man Ministry comes around. And they tell you if you want to go to service, you put your towel out the window. So I did that. I put my towel out the window. And the guy came and he preached. I don't know what he preached about that day. I can't tell you. At the end, he said, anybody who wants to give their life to Christ, he said, say this prayer. And I said that prayer. And there was something broke. Just something snapped. And I was just crying. And I couldn't stop crying. And I called her on the phone. And I was trying to tell her. And I don't know if she understood anything I said, but it was a relief, you know. And like I said, we've known each other since we were 16 years old. At this time, I was 38. So she's been knowing me over 22 years. She walked in the room and she sat down across from me. She says, Archie, you look different.
Totally different man.
There's something different about you.
Yep.
And the only thing that had changed was I had confessed Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior in that cell, down in that cell.
I could see it, I could hear it. Just a totally different man sitting over there.
So after the visit, and I'm in the county jail for the armed robbery, I'm facing 22 years to life. And so I'm like, it's over, you know. And I'm still new in Christianity and learning how to pray and talk to God. I'm like, 22 years, there's nothing going to be left for me after 22 years when I get out. And God just began to stir the pot. Even the lawyer I had at the time, my first lawyer, told her to leave me because guys like that never change.
He's nothing. He is nothing.
Yeah.
You should leave him alone. You're better than that. You have your whole life ahead of you. You have a child to take care of. Leave him alone.
And so the 22 years that they wanted me to serve, God reduced that to 10. 10 years. Now you're thinking to yourself, man, you went to prison for 10 years? That's a lot of time. It's nothing compared to 22 years.
Yeah.
So I thanked God for the 10. I prayed, you know, I prayed that something miraculous would happen, and he delivered. So I'll be honest with you, I prayed I don't want to go to prison. But you're going to prison, but it won't be for 22 years. You'll still have a lot of life in you when you get out.
Yeah, and I said to you, I'm not going to leave you in here.
Right.
So we're going to do this together. You're going to get... And I was thinking more so not as my husband, you know, boyfriend, or, you know, just this is a good man, a human being. I am not going to allow you to do this time, you know, alone. I'll be there to walk this walk with you, no matter what happens.
Amen. So, December 2008, they take me out of holding up to the floor, and I attend services there, and that's where I met Reverend Gillard. Reverend Gillard came in and he spoke, and the thing about church here, it changed my perception of what I thought church was. You know, I thought church was judgmental. I thought church was a book of laws. Here's your book. There's going to be a test at the end. And I heard some of the testimonies. I seen some of the men who had been through what I've been through. I heard the word of the volunteers in Forgotten Man Ministry and Reverend Gillard and how he had his own struggles, you know. I thought pastors were raised on a mountaintop and drank spring water for, you know, all their lives. But then when I realized they were human beings like me and they had their own struggles, he was able to reach me. There was a connection. And he spoke to my mother and things of that nature. So I appreciate what he did. Reverend Gillard gave me the first opportunity to speak.
Yeah.
And like I said, I didn't have visions of being a pastor. I didn't have visions of being a mentor or a speaker. It's just God just starts to put things in you, give you opportunities. And so I left here and I went to prison for that 10 years, and I worked with the chaplain in there for 10 years and helping guys. God sending people to me. That was my ministry. That was my field, where I labored in there in prison for 10 years, because there were people hurting in there. And there were people who had been through what I've been through. And so it was easy for me to minister to them.
Yeah. Teaching.
Yes.
GED programs.
Right. Yeah.
Mentoring through the church. Just everything that you could get into.
Right. So I get out, I come home, and Reverend Gillard, who was a volunteer at the county jail at the time, he had his own church when I got out 10 years later, and he introduced me to Patrick Sanders, the pastor at the church I attend now, and we sat down and talked. And mind you, I just got out of prison a couple weeks ago. I'm in the pastor's office in New Jerusalem, and it's one of the largest churches in the city of Flint. And the pastor tells me, I don't know why, but I'm supposed to help you.
And that's what I'm going to do.
He says, whether you succeed or if you fail, it won't be because I didn't do what I was supposed to do.
Yep.
He says, you'll be outside my door next Sunday at 10:30. He made me an assistant pastor of his church. Never heard me preach, never heard anything, never heard me speak. Just Holy Spirit told him, and he was obedient.
And
That's
been at
it.
that church every Sunday.
Every Sunday for the last
Faithfully for the last 2
2
years.
years, yeah.
Even dragging me sometimes.
Right, we've been dragging her sometimes. Sometimes she makes it. So we're out to lunch one day. Went out to lunch one day
Oh, yeah.
at Tully's. She was at work. She had me meet her at lunch. So I got to meet her at lunch. And we're sitting down eating. A couple guys sitting at the next table in front of us. And I recognized a red vest.
Yes.
Praise God for the red vest, for God Man Ministry.
I didn't know what it was.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it, and I said, excuse me, I'll be right back.
Yeah.
So I go over and
where
I
you
see
going?
these three gentlemen, you know, and I said, forgive me for interruption, but I got to pay for your lunch. I got to pay for your lunch. That vest for God Man Ministry changed my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10, 12 years ago, a guy wearing a vest just like that changed my life at Genesee County Jail. And I just got to do something for you. Can I pay for your lunch?
Yeah.
And so we spoke for a moment, and on the way out, I didn't know that one of the guys was actually the chaplain at the Genesee County Jail, and he stopped and talked, and that was Chaplain Hovis.
Yep.
And so we were just talking,
And I made sure.
right, he was ready to leave.
He
on
was
his
ready.
way out. And so my wife says,
I was like, oh no.
tell him what you
You
do
gonna
now.
know who he is. You gonna know who he is and everything that he's done, everything he's gonna do. You're gonna know. And I'm pretty sure he was looking at me like, okay, thanks for the information.
Right. So she wanted me to make sure I told him that I was an assistant pastor at the church now.
Yes.
So I told him, I shared that with him. He gave me his card, and I called.
Well, what I wanted him to know was that you just didn't, you were not just at the county jail, met Gillard. Gillard said some things that really touched you at that time. I wanted him to know that everything that happened to you, look where it led, and this is where he is now, and he's continuing because of you guys.
Right. Yeah. So Forgotten Man Ministry was definitely the catalyst. They were used by God to do this work in me. And so that's why I'm sitting here now, to give them, to share my story with people who are in my situation, to give them just whatever they need to help other people know that, hey, you can do the same thing this guy did. Because I'm an accountability guy and I'm an excuse killer. There's no excuses once you hear my story. This guy was an addict. This guy's family was messed up. His situation was messed up. He went to prison. All the cards were stacked up against him, you know. And he still came out all right. He still came out better than he was before he went in. So all your excuses are done. It's not the government. It's not anybody else holding you down. It's not the parole officer doesn't like you. So what? With God on your side, you'll make it. You can achieve it. You get good people in your corner. God has surrounded me with good people like those men here. And that's what it's about. It's about you making choices. I made choices that sent me to prison twice. I made choices that had me stuck in addiction. She made choices that says, I'm going to stick with you. And when I saw her love for me, when I saw these strangers love, the love of the volunteers that were coming to the prison for years, they're still coming to the county jail. They give up their weekends. Instead of hanging out with their family, they come into the prisons to talk to us. Yeah. I'm like, that's genuine.
It's difficult for family members, difficult for the wives, difficult for the girlfriends, but you just have to believe, have faith, and just understand that sometimes, you know, someone is in a worse situation that you're in, and if nothing else, answering the phone, writing a letter, just being there and walking that walk can do wonders for somebody who's, you know, and just in my mind, I was like, no, I'm not leaving you in here alone. You'll have somebody to talk to, you'll have somebody to write with, you will have someone to love you. You will have someone to be by your side. Whatever you need, you're going to have that. And that was a decision that I made.
Today, I'm actually teaching. I'm an assistant. I'm a volunteer in the Genesee County Jail, volunteering with Forgotten Man Ministry. I've been deputized. I work with Forgotten Man Ministry. I voluntarily go back to jail once a week. Some people get out and they never want to go back. I say, Lord, I can't wait to go back. I can't wait to go back. That's where I was born. I was born in the bottom of that county jail. I see it as Jesus born in the manger, in the grimiest, worst place in the bottom, and a king came out of it. I feel the same way. I was born in the bottom of that county jail, and I love to go in there and talk to those guys because ministering is about being able to speak their language. That's why Jesus spoke in parables. When he spoke to the farmers, he used farmer parables. When he spoke to the sheep herders, he spoke about sheep. I can speak the language of the addict, of the criminal, of the depressed, the brokenhearted. I can speak that language, and I love going in there talking to those men. Forgotten Man Ministry, thank you, and the sheriff's deputies in there that said, okay, that said, we're gonna give this guy a chance. We know the criteria doesn't fit, but God will make a way. When the criteria says, no, you don't fit, God says, I'll get you in. So don't let anybody tell you this door has been closed. You can't do that because you're a felon. You won't be able to do this. You won't be able to teach there because you're a felon. God doesn't care about what you used to be.
Yep.
Amen.
Yep. Absolutely.